And welcome back, fellow American patriots and Minutemen, standing at the ready to fight anew for the issues that actually matter on the playing field here on this Wednesday, following the State of the Union, the State of the Delusion. Here at Blaze Media, your host, Daniel Horowitz, back here to discuss what none of my colleagues will discuss. We'll go through all of the issues or most of the issues mentioned in that address, but not in the framework of the theatrics of what was the performance. Daniel, what did you think of the State of the Union address? The more important question that we need to ask is, what do you think of the state of the union of the actual country, economy, culture, conservative movement, Republican Party, the forgotten American worker, landowner, farmer, consumer being disenfranchised? What are the policies, strategies, and plans to actually change things that we all recognized, or most of us recognized a day ago, that things really were not going well for us, and that we're going to wind up losing an election and losing probably several elections and losing a bunch of red state residual power after having accomplished nothing in an enduring way? In that sense, nothing changed last night. Okay, there were no new policies discussed, other than maybe one or two minor economic things that are Keynesian big government that Trump announced recently, but you could say maybe they were new for most people, but there was nothing new. There was great, Americana patriotism befitting of the 250th anniversary, which I think was great. I am all for icing if you have a cake. I am all for a State of the Union address that gives lip service to some of our issues if you actually have a reality playing field and a plan to drive that bully pulpit as a hammer into the anvil of policy results. But if on the actual policy playing field, you're often doing the opposite and negating those stated interests, whether it's on crime, immigration, whether it's on what he said about data centers, then the fact that Trump gave a great speech that my colleagues were very inspired by, does that make it better or worse? In my mind, it makes it worse because that injects our people with political fentanyl, thinking, oh, everything changed. We're going to win because of a speech that, frankly, in the era we live in with mass media, there's no one speech or one anything that garners enough influence. The Olympics are down in viewership just because people are oversaturated with constant screen time. So something months before an election, the speech is not going to change anything. But I do want to say, to the extent that my colleagues were inspired by Trump's ability to put on a performance, use props and patriotism and, military heroes and, victims of illegal immigration to drive the narrative, it's all the more of an indictment why it's not been done, and he won't continue to do it on a weekly basis, and driving it towards very specific outcomes, demanding very specific strategies to get them passed beyond the filibuster, and nominating and endorsing people federally and in state primaries that reflect that, not the opposite. That's the real playing field. The real playing field is not, oh my gosh, we're going to put on our broadcast. Everyone's got to have their Twitter algorithms because they're all amped up tonight. I got to monetize my Twitter account tonight. No, the real playing field is primaries, state legislatures where Republicans have supermajorities. And if the only problem is not enough Republican votes, you should be able to do everything. You should implement all this stuff. Yet they're absent. They're completely absent as they allow their deity to literally do more harm to the cause of what MAGA is perceived as representing than anyone before him. Because again, Mitch McConnell, when I fought him in my career 10 to 15 years ago, he never had this degree of adulation among conservative media and therefore a lot of the voters as Trump does. So when he made these bad endorsements of candidates that literally represent and do the opposite of some of what he said last night about things like immigration, it has a huge effect. It has a huge effect. So this is the thing. Now it's a little bit too little, too late. There's no strategy. The right loves words. The left loves deeds, and therein lies the problem. They put deeds behind their ideology. We put words behind ours, but in a duplicitous way that distracts people and gives them the impression that we engaged in deeds but didn't. And often, if you look at the deed playing field, so there's the word playing field and the deed playing field, we're doing the exact opposite. So the fact that you have mellifluous sounding words that give lip service to our ideas, that actually is a negative because it distracts and white pills people away from building that pressure and that movement that we need. And, we've often seen that the president, when you do pressure him, he does respond. And I think we saw that with one very important issue last night with the data center stuff. And that's a big point I want to get to. So, anyway, very ambitious agenda today. I'm going to try to get to it all. But the bottom line is it will all be something you do not hear anywhere else, not on the liberal critique, the establishment critique, the, Con Inc. It's my own thoughts. And again, I'll do a little bit of commentary, but we don't need more pundits. We need more activists. So my focus is on, okay, what is the plan to implement any of the good ideas, to block the bad ideas that we didn't support under Biden, to win in red states, to get better Republicans, because Democrats are crushing. They actually crushed in 3 special legislative elections last night. No flips of party, but they overperformed again every Tuesday night, pretty much. So what is the plan? As always, like and subscribe at Hurwitz Show. It's not very algorithm friendly, what I do. It certainly doesn't help. And this is what happens in this business. It's a self-licking ice cream cone where all my colleagues, they're in an echo chamber and they literally think they're watching the Super Bowl and everything hinges on the words of this one speech. And, oh, he really scored here and high fly ball deep to left field, way back, way back. And then you wake up the next day and it's like, wait, you're focused on the pregame commentary. And then when it comes to the actual big game, I know I mixed analogies there, football and baseball, but when it comes to the big game, you're not even on the playing field of red state legislatures, primaries, pressuring. Okay, how will Congress codify any of this? So no one cares about that. We're not even playing the actual game. It's the pregame commentary. So I'll start off with the good, the commentary part of it, the State of the Union address, and then we're going to get to the State of the Union. So, in terms of the address, I think, so for one, there was less narcissism. Everyone pointed that out. Less I, more, patriotism. And yeah, that was great. I think the president overall did as good as he can do with the bed he has made and stubbornly wants to sit in it. So, in other words, he has staked out a certain economic view. So he repeated all of that. But so one thing I noticed that I think was effective, what do you do if the economy is horrible? You're getting crushed on it, but you don't feel like you can get up there and say it's horrible because you have to say how great it is. Well, the best thing to do is to de-emphasize it and focus on immigration, culture, and some of these other things with the hockey team and military heroes and these other things. So I think that was a good distraction. It was good he did that for his own sake. It's interesting if you look. I'm going to put up for our viewers. For those of you listening, I'll narrate it. This is from Semaphore, a graphic of the time spent, the percentage of the speech on economy and other things. Trump, Obama, Biden, and then the 1965 to 2025 average. And as you can see, the economy should loom larger and does loom larger probably than it ever did, given the employment and unaffordability crises created by the debt, stagflation, easy money that we want to continue. Both parties want to continue. But anyway, rather than spending more time, it was actually less, noticeably less. Now, some of that's also a percentage because the speech was 2 hours, so it's both ways. It's math too. Look, from a purely just commentating standpoint, that was smart because any word he's going to say on that ain't good. It's not going to win. So you saw a lot more on immigration, which was good rhetorically. Again, immigration was good. And culture and foreign affairs so yeah, that was smart. Obviously he did, recycle all of his greatest hits on the economy, but went through with it quickly. So that was good. Less narcissism, very effective use of props. I think his most effective moment, but again, these moments aren't going to matter. But this one would be the most effective was when he had a premeditated idea to challenge the Democrats to stand for the proposition that public servants should represent citizens before illegal aliens. So that way, that's I think the one thing he gave to the Republicans that are terrified of getting slaughtered, that fundamentally don't have any greater guidance after last night, is that now they could use their respective opponents or incumbents, at least, that were there, and they wouldn't stand for that proposition. So I felt, so let's go to immigration. I felt that was an effective message. I think he did good on immigration, but there's two things to say. Unlike the economic issues where largely I disagree with a lot of those policies, I agree with every word he said. The problem is, where is the agenda to drive this into something? So he mentioned that Democrats are shutting down DHS. So I thought that's where he would say, and we will force a talking filibuster to stand for the American people, to finally end sanctuary cities once and for all, to cut off benefits once and for all. And I would have loved to go and put a moratorium on the foreign worker, where it's hard enough to get American jobs. Instead, he said something like, where is this? I want to get the exact quote. But he mentioned something about shoveling snow, that they shut that down. I don't know what that means. There weren't enough people to shovel the snow. I'm demanding the full and immediate restoration of all funding for border security, homeland security, and also for helping people clean up the snow. We have no money because of the Democrats, and it would be nice. We'd love to give you a hand at cleaning it up, but you gave us no money. Nobody's getting paid. So there was no narrative, like nothing. So what are you doing? What is your plan in your final months of trifecta control that you're never going to get back? You failed to do it in the first term. What is the plan to fulfill the immigration dictate? What is the plan? And no one saw that. So, yeah, I could agree with the words, but if it's not being driven towards an outcome, what's the point? That was the problem last night. It's not like he signaled a new plan on healthcare, transactional gold accounts to make gold accessible not just to central bankers, but to the average consumer, that could save them 30-40% on cost of living. Foreign worker moratorium, protecting the rights of landowners, fighting for privacy and the surveillance state, the Chinese espionage and foreign students, medical freedom, MAHA, chronic illness. That did not make an appearance in a 2-hour speech. These are all issues that, for the most part, my colleagues in the online right crowd understand are winning issues. None of that made an appearance. So it's not like there was anything new that's going to change the trajectory. Only something like that, land, privacy, gold accounts, that's something, chronic illness, that's something that cuts across, that to the extent that anything could change the trajectory of this election, perhaps that would be it. Although I think you would need a new party to do that. But if you're just going to try to resurrect broad indictment of criminal aliens and illegal aliens, but then do nothing with it, and just broadly resurrect transgenderism, we have already seen that in the elections. Democrats aren't running on that. Republicans can try to smear them with it, but it's not going to work. I mean, I think he did a good job with the patriotism and culture, showing the contrast. But at the end of the day, nothing was strong enough that's going to overcome the economic problems. And he didn't, take a stab at any of those things. So to me, what embodies this dichotomy between word and deed, between the theatrics and the playing field of political commentary versus activism, outcomes, and results. Really, the dead giveaway was the opening line of the speech. And this is the state of the delusion right here, right now. And he said, quote, tonight, after just 1 year, I can say with dignity and pride that we have achieved a transformation like no one has ever seen before and a turnaround for the ages. Now, nobody on our side, you don't have to be black pilled even to understand that the state of the economy, the state of venture socialism, the corruption in our politics, the culture, healthcare, and even on immigration and crime and insurrection and Antifa and the weaponization, DOJ, nothing, it's not transformational. You could find things here and there, but then the second half negates that. Quote, we will never go back to where we were just a short time ago. I don't understand. If you're not going to codify anything and you don't, there was rumors he would call for budget reconciliation again. He didn't. And you're saying we basically did everything executively and we're all good and it's all turned around, then by definition, if Democrats are crushing it, absolutely everything will go back to exactly the way it was with interest a short time ago, just like it did in 2021. That's the question nobody is answering me. If you're not going to do any of these transformational things on healthcare, on gold accounts, foreign worker moratorium, protection of landowners' rights, surveillance state, Chinese espionage, foreign students, medical freedom, chronic illness, the stuff that really maybe cuts across some of the typical stalemate issues, you're not going to push that. And you're not going to endorse better people in federal and state primaries. And in fact, you're going to take, and we're going to get to this in a minute, every single conservative that is running to actually do these things, you sabotage their ability to even run in red states. So then when Democrats take over, what are we left with? What is the plan to ensure that in the very near future, we don't wind up with 2021, except if everything has gotten much worse? No one has an answer for that. That's exactly the point. We did everything, and not only that, it's permanent. Nothing is never going to go back. Wait, what? There's nothing that is permanent that was done. The stuff, whether you agree or disagree with. And here is really the embodiment of this dichotomy between word and deed. Political fentanyl and political reality. The State of the Union and the state of the delusion. So, on the one hand, the good news is, while the president did not introduce any new policy, any new strategy, any new confidence that there's going to be any change in what he does, he did have more self-awareness, as much as practicably he could with the positions he's already staked out. In terms of aristopopulism, where he has all the worst of the aristocracy with the AI companies, big tech, and then, that perpetuates inflation, and then, let's just throw a bunch of populist socialism at people. He actually had enough self-awareness that he only went with the populism socialism, but not the aristo part of aristopopulism. That's the dog that didn't bite or didn't bark in the speech last night. It's very interesting. He did not mention AI at all. Like, as I thought he would extol that as the future and we're investing. And in fact, the only time he referenced it, I don't know if he used the word AI even, was data centers, when he said that data centers, everyone has to sign a pledge that they're only going to use their own power. So right off the bat, that tells you, because a lot of other things, there was no self-awareness. So it just tells you how much I'm right on that issue. It is so potent It is so radioactive. That is an issue where they could lose red states overnight on that issue, by the way. So at least there's self awareness. But here's where deed versus word. So all my colleagues like, you see, Daniel, you're right, but Trump's coming our way. I would love to think that. But here's the problem. I see everything my colleagues put out. I could summarize their stuff in 15 seconds. This is a great speech ever, and each one's trying to outdo each other with metaphors or, adjectives to describe it. I see their bullcrap. They don't see what you and I focus on, but that's the real playing field. Daily Signal White House correspondent Elizabeth Mitchell reports that the White House urged Florida House Speaker Rhino Perez to oppose and block DeSantis' AI Bill of Rights. And, he was behind that. Now, not only is that blocking the data center stuff, but even on basic things like safety for children, he's blocking. So on the one hand, he's like, yeah, we're going to make them do this. But then every time we have a bill in Florida, in Oklahoma, we talked about, that would actually codify the cheap talking point of data centers will have to pay their own way into law, the Republican Party, buttressed by the White House, opposes it. And in fact, they're working on endless executive and legislative ideas to push preemption, both on the data center side and on AI safety. So, like, what am I supposed to do? Clap like a seal? Oh, that was amazing. But if I'm seeing you do the exact opposite on the issue that matters in the way it matters at the time it actually matters, then what's the point of theatrics and these words? It's so bizarre. And then also, it's an impossibility. So there's no self-awareness. I mean, I said there was some, but we're saying, oh, we won't let them raise rates on you. In Maryland, the rates went up already 30%, and both parties agree it's the transmission lines going to Northern Virginia's data centers. You can't not go up. It's already gone up. It's going up. What do you mean they'll have to pay their own way? It's like I'm punching you in the face. And then I say, I got to watch where I throw my arms, where I throw my fist. I got to be careful. I got to be careful. Got to be careful. They're literally doing it now. There's nearly 680 data centers being planned that are hyperscale on top of the existing baseline, according to data firm CleanView. That alone would require the energy equivalent of 186 large nuclear power plants. It doesn't exist. If you build them, by definition, the people will have to pay for it. You could say whatever you want. The only way that could work is if they would produce such a degree of profit that they would be able to afford producing 186 nuclear reactor equivalents. But they're not. That's the whole point. It's all unproductive debt. There's a cash flow problem. See, this is what my colleagues don't have enough IQ to talk about. Oh, he said they'll pay for it. Oh, that's great. It's funny, they were never concerned about the issue until now. It's only once Trump tries to get ahead of it. Yeah, the data centers will have to pay for it. Mind you, before he said that, they never took that position that they should pay for it because they were too scared to. They don't give a damn about anything. They don't believe in anything. Again, it's hard to know if they're gay or retarded. It's like, is it that they don't have any beliefs, or they don't have any brains, or a mixture of both? Because I think it is both. They don't understand issues either. Most of these guys never even heard of data centers until 3 minutes ago. But they got it all figured out. But anyway, when we're talking about, it's not just that Trump is not supporting the type of people that the fake online right base claims to want, but then every time we bring them about, Trump endorses against them. He is literally, the White House is systematically going around the country, finding anyone who is like that and opposing them. I was speaking with friends in Wyoming politics. Wyoming should be our reddest state. We should be implementing all of this there. Yet they're crushing the state with data centers, crushing. The Republicans are literally Democrats there. The Freedom Caucus is fighting for its life there. And Trump meddling in their primaries is empowering the bad guys. That matters a lot more than the way Stephen Miller's, pre-written speech matters. Like, I'm sorry. I don't mind celebrating his speech and the patriotism. That's fine. But then you got to wake up from your drunken stupor and articulate what is it you plan on changing and doing. Because he's doing the opposite. He's doing the exact opposite. And then let me show you a story that truly embodies this problem with Trump and primaries. There's this guy, Colton Moore. Okay? He is running for Marjorie Taylor Greene's seat. Now, that is a very conservative district. If you're going to want like the most right-winger around, it's going to be in a seat like that. Colton Moore is in the state legislature. He is one of the smartest, but the guy has balls of steel. He will literally call out the GOP corruption in the chamber. We've played clips from him before. I've had him on the show before. I've interviewed him in person. He's one of Andy Roth's favorite legislators in the country. And mind you, he's not like a Ted Cruz type of conservative. He is everything that the online right claims to want. Everything to a T. And he has the theatrics too, by the way. Very entertaining and bombastic and based and everything you would ever want if you believed a word of what you actually articulate and flatulate online every day in order to monetize your account. He's running. The Washington Post are reporting the White House made it clear that they do not want him and they're going to endorse against him. And the reason is because they don't want an independent thinker like that. They don't want more troublemakers in the House. You know what a troublemaker is? A troublemaker is a member who actually goes to Trump and says, look, what is your plan to codify this stuff on immigration and other things and actually cut spending, actually cut inflation, actually fulfill the promises so that your words when you say we will never go back to where we were just a short time ago actually could ring true. So you understand, I gave you a little different perspective. But it's not just a different perspective on a speech. I'm giving you new external information that relates to the actual playing field of policy, of primaries, the arc and trajectory of the GOP. That sheds very different light on what's going on. So then, in that respect, I would have rather he gave like a openly left-wing speech last night. So at least that people would realize, whoa, there's no hope there. We got to build a parallel movement. Instead, all this does is just, wow, this is amazing. And politically, it changes nothing. As one anonymous source told Politico, but I don't care if it's anonymous because the words are true, quote, it's all look behind, as great as it all is. Not sure what anyone is supposed to do the rest of the year, much less after Election Day. All Trump's asks of Congress were half-assed or non-existent at best. And that's what it is. What's the point? Where are we headed? There's one more thing I want to note. So Wyoming primaries, Colton Moore in Georgia. I want to note something about Indiana and how Republicans cannot even stand behind their own red lines. The online right can't even stand behind their own red lines. So as we noted, we have Republicans. I've actually been talking a lot about Indiana in recent days. We have Republicans in the legislatures, deep red states, that literally oppose everything that was articulated last night on things like immigration. They're blocking the abolishing CDLs for illegal aliens and things like that. They're pushing that data centers cannot pay their own way and grabbing land for farmland for solar, wind, carbon capture data centers. And no one cares to throw them out. Oh, but finally, there's a couple of rhinos in Indiana that blocked getting one more federal seat, which in the scheme of things won't do anything for us. And everyone's like, these rhinos. I'm like, oh, yeah, but the more consequential issue is not getting one more seat in an insufferable body that clearly, as Trump himself has made clear, he's not going to do anything more in, but where you have 4-1 majorities and you run Indiana like a Democrat state. But okay, if this is the issue that you want to go to war with, that the rhinos in Indiana voted against redistricting, let's do that. This is a story from The Down Ballot. It's a left-wing Substack. And before I read the story, I want to make a secondary point. The online right so could not give a damn about primaries, and their focus is so not on primaries, including when there's people that run on everything they claim to believe in, they leave them out in the field, that I actually have to go to left-wing blogs in order to get good updates on down ballot races and primaries, not Democrat, but Republican primaries. The left does a better job covering Republican primaries than the right does because they actually understand the stakes. They understand that, to have fake Republicans in red states aren't just almost as good as Democrats. They're actually better because they're able to hold policies in those states for them that Democrats would get thrown out immediately if they pushed. So they understand the stakes of primaries. So anyway, they note that Donald Trump's crusade to punish Indiana Republicans who scuttled his plans to re-gerrymander the state's districts just suffered a high-profile blow when a challenger he had endorsed abandoned his campaign against a Republican senator who opposed a remap. Bluffton City Councilman Blake Feichter announced last week that he was ending his bid against Senator Travis Holdman, a big rhino there, one of the 21 Republicans in the upper chamber who voted against this. And Trump endorsed Feichter, but he gave him no money. The guy was out of money. And then they go through even the other candidates that are still in the race. They basically have no money. So the point is, it's all a fake movement. They won't even put their money where their mouth is. Where's TPUSA? Where's all these organizations? Like, I get it. You don't give a damn about land use and gold and medical freedom and all the things that the rhinos are fighting conservatives in the Freedom Caucus. Oh, but you oppose Trump's redistricting plan, right? So we're going to get... No, they're so pathetic and listless and soulless and brainless and initiativeless that they won't even focus on primaries for their own stated objectives. That's the state of the delusion, the state of the broken conservative union. There's nothing there. So all these words ring hollow. I'm sorry if that offends people. I mean, like, what do you want me to do? Should I get up here and say what all my colleagues are saying? I'm not even disagreeing with their assessment of the speech. It's the state of the union. What actually is going on? What actually is true? Like, we know what's going to happen. They're going to wake up the day after Election Day and be devastated. I'm trying to say, let's build a plan now to at least win in red states with good candidates. Focus on the primaries. Try to build a parallel message on things like gold, foreign workers, landowners' rights, the surveillance state, pro-human versus, algorithmic slop and transhumanism. Things that are at least resonating. And by the way, you now know I'm right. You see clearly from Trump's speech, they know that this is a winning issue, which is why they had to give lip service to it. But of course, as we noted, they're doing nothing about it and, in fact, opposing any candidate or effort to actually codify his words into deed. So anyway, let's go through some of the economic points that he was making. And I just want to say that my colleagues during Biden's State of the Union address would say the same things when Biden was gaslighting on pricing and jobs. The same illusory statistics they would use, they would bash, and then now we're supposed to celebrate that. I mean, this is where I am just not wired to be a hack. I can't do that. So, for example, he said that there's more Americans working than at any time. That's a true statement. The raw numbers always go up because of population growth. But we also have more Americans not working than at any time. We have a greater percentage of college graduates who cannot get jobs than at any time. So those raw numbers are meaningless, and everyone knows that. You could debate who to blame and what to do going forward. But if you tell me that, then there's nothing to do. Everyone knows that's not true. Obviously you had the selective stuff on you know, inflation and things like that. And I think the president did okay on he did turn to the Democrats and say, you guys caused it, but he didn't drive home that it's the debt doing it. And then he's like, yeah, prices are going down. Beef is up 15%. Like that was demonstratively false. You could find certain commodities that fluctuate heavily. So, you could catch it on a down, but fundamentally it's not true. The PCE core inflation, which is the Fed's, favorite metric, that's at 3% now. That is actually more than it was when he took office. And that's on top of the baseline. If inflation would be zero now, it would still be unaffordable because of what happened during COVID. The bottom line is the global money supply has surged 13.6 trillion year over year, 10.4%. That's why we're going to have inflation. We're going to continue doing that. And everything he proposed is going to throw more money at the problem, is designed to make unaffordability possibly subsidized and affordable, thereby driving more inflation rather than bringing down prices. Now, I know we've beat this like a dead horse, but I'd be remiss if I didn't bring in Trump's statement on housing, where he openly says he wants higher housing prices. Take a listen.
Mortgage rates are the lowest in 4 years and falling fast, and the annual cost of a typical new mortgage is down almost $5,000 just since I took office. 1 year. And low interest rates will solve the Biden-created housing problem well, at the same time protecting the values of those people who already own a house that really feel rich for the first time in their lives. We want to protect those values. We want to keep those values up. We're going to do both.
We want to keep those values up. Dude, that's the price that a buyer pays. What he's basically saying is he feels that he could bring interest rates to zero, which he can't. And even if he tried to, that the 10-year treasury wouldn't go to zero. It couldn't. So he'll make everyone, but not only will that maintain the housing price, that will cause housing prices to go up. So basically, have people take out a low interest rate debt on like $1 million home. You cannot imagine how harmful that is. Again, if I were to say that after Biden would suggest such a thing, everyone would be, Biden's such a senile fool. He says he wants housing prices low and high at the same time. Haha. And then what? So it's better if Trump says it? What do you want me to do? That's retarded. I'm sorry. It just is. And then, you had other policies. All Americans can profit from the stock market. So you talked about these retirement accounts. So Trump accounts, this, that, all this stuff is inflationary. What do you think caused inflation? If the solution is you just throw money at people, give them free health care. Oh, you want retirement accounts? Here's that. Want birth accounts? Here's birth accounts. Want car loans? Here's car loans. Then why start with $1,000 match for government-sponsored 401ks? That's not a lot. Give them 100,000. If it's all free money, why cap it at that? You see what I'm saying? I mean, this was literally what Democrats have been doing since we were born. We know not only doesn't it work, that is the cause of the problem. There's nothing creative about that idea. I was like, that's so creative. It's you know what it's designed to do? To funnel more money through the Mag 7 companies, which basically dominate the stock market. That's all it is. And it's funny, didn't we just have my colleagues blasting Pam Bondi for gaslighting people that the economy is so great because of the stock market, and then Trump gets up there with the stock market record high? It's funny, the one thing he'll never mention is, do you know what else is record high? Gold. Okay? He'll never talk about gold, because gold is basically the mirror on the naked balls of this economy and how fraudulent it is and how it's not working for people. And in fact, what he should do is gold accounts. That's the only account he wouldn't do. And that we're not asking to subsidize. Just don't tax it. Just don't tax it. Treat it as currency. Won't do it. Won't do it. And I think we know why. That's that aristo populism, but more the aristo part than the populism even. Let me go on. He talked about it's time to ban insider trading. That's great. But do you know that that bill only applies to Congress? He said, we shouldn't have insider information. I agree. But then why is he opposing it when it applies to the executive branch? Say what you want about Congress, but Congress is removed. Members of Congress have become much more irrelevant than they were like back in the 1950s. And even then, it's removed. They don't have the power to, create overnight, have the Department of Commerce or Treasury forge a deal with a big tech company, knowing that the valuation will go up 10% the next day, and then put in money or dump money based on that. The executive branch officials do have that ability, including the man himself. And not only is it not in the bill, but the only way to get the bill passed was because they had to agree with the White House to take it out. So what am I supposed to think about that? But that, it is what it is. He blamed Democrats for Obamacare, which I thought was good, reminding people of why that went there. But then he's like, we're going to stop all payments to insurance companies. We'll give it to the people. But if you don't repeal Obamacare, there's no other insurers that could get in. So that it's the same thing. So the companies could keep raising their prices, knowing that commensurate with how much they go up, you're going to give the people to buy their product. If you don't reform that whole system, it's not a change. I am glad that he did mention price transparency, that Democrats, he had a good, in the final 2 months of his presidency, it was after the election, they started to implement it. Biden reversed it, and I haven't heard much about it. So that was a little bit new, and I hope that is implemented. Let's move on. He talked about LA will be safe for the Olympics. Dude, you pulled the National Guard out. So this is another thing that was very shocking to me, another dog that didn't bark. I thought he would really go to town on the culture of left-wing violence, assassination, okay? The attacks on ICE. It's almost like he wanted to stay away from that. Remind people, tally it all up. Now, to be clear, what he did is he obviously had his props. He had Erica Kirk. He had Irina's parents. And he had the National Guardsmen that were killed by left-wing violence in D.C. But it was more like just celebrating their legacy and heroism, which was fine. But he didn't. I went back and looked at the transcript. He never went and indicted them, which is very weird. He's been very weak on Antifa and didn't call out Antifa by name. And DOJ is not doing anything on it. This is what is so bizarre. And look, I love the props like everyone else. The military service, the heroes, had the guy, the Coast Guard guy that saved the girls in the Texas flood. And I was thinking, that's a reminder that as much as we have a lot of psychopaths in this country, mental illness, demographic problems, godless problems, education problems, we still have a lot of good people in this country that are better than our political leaders in both parties. And we need to come up with a strategy to find ways of reflecting red state values with representation in the political system, because what we have right now ain't it. And whenever we try to bring people like that, the White House opposes them. I don't understand. Doc Chambers, Green Beret doctor, hero on the border issue, hero on medical freedom. And he was also a hero with the Texas floods. He was working with it. He's running for governor. Where are my colleagues supporting Doc Chambers? Supporting Greg Abbott for a fourth term over Doc Chambers negates everything he said. Everything. What's the point? My colleagues will kind of put their head down and be like, yeah, Daniel, you're right. His endorsements are kind of stinky. But that's not some sort of side issue. That's the whole enchilada. Because to the extent you could defend him for not doing a lot of things, it'll be like, well, he doesn't have the votes. But you don't have the votes because you re-endorse every rhino. And then even in the red states where we should have the votes to implement them at a state level, he's now supporting rhinos at the state level and opposing anyone who's going to fight for us. So what do you want me to do? I'm glad that he mentioned no CDLs for illegals, Delia's law. That's great. What's your plan to pass it? And I just want to say, with budget reconciliation, you could pass whatever the hell you want. The majority party does it. Do you know how they passed the tax cuts? The tax cuts violated the Byrd rule because they add to the deficit. So they had to make up a thing that, oh, well, it's current policy, even though it's not current law. Democrats made a point of order that it should be subject to 60 votes. It's a violation of the Byrd rule. And the point of order was overruled by the chair, Senator Moreno, who was in the Ohio senator, who was in the chair. And he didn't ask the parliamentarian for advice, who probably would have advised against it because the parliamentarian's not elected and the majority party could do what they want. Why is it that we're able to do that for a bunch of demand side weirdo tax provisions? All demand side, by the way. Inflationary, unproductive, more unproductive spending, but not for any of the immigration promises. Why is that? That's what I'm saying. He doesn't connect it. The asks of Congress were incomplete, non-existent, or half-baked. There's no follow-through. And what is follow-through literally does the opposite. Supports the people and policies, particularly on AI and data centers, that do the opposite. What's the point? What is the point? So this all leads to the midterm elections. And if you think that because of that speech, somehow Republicans are more electable, you're delusional. You're utterly delusional. You understand, I'm not just criticizing. I have every day, including today, told you about messaging that could break the logjam. It's something that's different from what they've heard. You don't see that. Instead, it's like, oh my gosh, we can't lose the midterms. Well, you're going to lose them. What's your plan? So take a listen to Mike Johnson's statement about the midterms following the speech last night.
Years, not just to fix the mess. And that's what we need. If we lost the midterms, heaven forbid, if we lost the majority in the House, it would be the end of the Trump presidency in a real effect. So we've got to keep this going, and I think we're excited to put our candidates on the field to explain all this to the people.
So Mike Johnson's like, if we lose the midterms, the presidency's over. So by the way, that's interesting because we'll bring that quote back when they actually lose. So then it's over. So then what's your plan? What will you do then? You're going to do things in red states? No. But notice that he's not focusing on what they need to do with a renewed majority. It's only like in the past, even though he admits it's a 4-year proposition. They never say, what will you do with that majority? Let's say Republicans would hold on to the majority. Name me the law they would get signed in. Because they'd have roughly the same majority. I mean, you're not going to have super majorities. But then again, we see in red states with super majorities what they wind up doing. This is why I obsessively focus on red states for a number of reasons. Because red states are the control group on every excuse that Con Inc. and the Republican Party want to give as to why things can't be done. You know why? Because you have 4-1 majorities, hold all the things. You don't have to worry about losing elections because even in a bad year, you're not going to lose the election. And yet, not only do they not pass good things, they downright, on some issues, are worse than Democrats in these states with land use and the data centers and wind and solar and carbon capture. They fight tooth and nail any immigration enforcement at a state level. They fight social conservatism. They fight against limited government. Literally, we've had people on from Oklahoma, West Virginia, where there's almost no Democrats in the chamber. And you ask the conservatives, how many conservatives are there? 20% of the conference, 10% of the conference. What is our plan other than anointing one man and giving him so much authority to continue endorsing all these problematic actors? I'm just not understanding what our plan is. What our plan is now, what our plan is for the future. It's like DOJ. DOJ is a dumpster fire. They nominated Colin McDonald to serve as Assistant Attorney General for a new Justice Department division tasked with rooting out fraud. You know, he talked about rooting out fraud like the Somali fraud last night. But McDonald currently serves as Associate Deputy Attorney General in Todd Blanche's office. This guy is he is the guy in the department, I could tell you, who's opposing any effort to root out what happened on January 6th. He's a career guy who is part of the problem. I don't understand what we're doing. But again, we could have talked about a different sort of quality of life. Pro-humanism, which, by the way, would have fit in with some of the props he was using. How about mandating that consumers have options to opt out of big tech smart everything that spies on you? I just want a normal car, a normal refrigerator. Go back to wholesomeness, whole health. These are things that really could appeal to people. But my colleagues are in an utter vacuum delusion. They won't focus on any of this stuff. It's not that you listen to my show and you listen to theirs and you'll be like, oh, you're debating the same point. They don't even know or care about any of these details. But my details aren't some nerdy distractions. They're literally the pen and paper, putting to pen and paper the aspirations that they say they want in terms of the type of people in primaries, the type of strategies in legislatures, in Congress, in executive, judicial, to actually get this done. What is their plan? The answer is they have no plan because they don't need a plan. Because you know what? When the Democrats come in, they give their State of the Union, they'll give their commentary and earn clicks on that too. And by the way, they'll say what I'm saying now. Yeah, the Democrats are gaslighting us on the jobs and inflation because really the numbers are illusory. Yeah. They don't believe in anything. We will not solve anything until we have truth. Until we know it is what we even believe, what we're striving for. I'm sorry. I am all for Trump getting up there and coming to our position. Like, you know what? You're right on data centers. I would much rather say, congratulations, Trump. I'm so happy you're doing that, rather than have to criticize it. But I'm sorry, if he says, yeah, they'll have to pay for it, while they're currently not, and they're opposing any effort to actually make that come true, aside from the fact that it's an impossibility that they could possibly pay for that, then what do you want me to say? The fact that he gave, well, Daniel, at least he gave lip service. That's worse, because that's a rope-a-dope. All that's designed is to deflate the pressure. Every time over the last 11 years that we started to build pressure against Trump to try to either change him or at least get people to realize that you have to stop the worship and focus on some other strategies, start building a parallel movement outside of him, he comes in with a speech and everyone's like, oh, that's good. This is not what I got into this for. I'm sorry. Email me, Daniel Hurwitz at startmail.com. Is this what you want to do? Is this what you want to hear? Are you offended by my take on this? Again, I roughly agree. It was a good speech. It was a good State of the Union address. But what about the State of the Union itself? What actually is happening, both economically, politically, in Republican primaries and legislatures? And if you're honest with yourself, you'd see it's a complete disaster. So then the question is, what is our blueprint? What is our plan to do anything about it? And therein lies the difference between us and the rest of the fake people on the right. We actually believe our talking points. We actually want to see this stuff through. What is their plan? Facing a midterm and probably the next election, getting wiped out even in red states with nothing to show for it. And until tomorrow, God bless y'all. And that's just the way it is.